On this week's show, a Georgia Southern doubleheader Thursday night at Hanner Fieldhouse. We'll let you know how the men and women did, and another new football hire released. All that and more as we welcome you inside the Eagles Nest. And welcome inside the Eagles Nest. I'm Josh Aubrey, being joined by Mike Anthony, sports editor and Georgia Southern beat writer for the Statesboro Herald. And Mike, let's kick things off with some basketball. We'll do some football news in a little bit, but let's begin with basketball, where the Georgia Southern men and women, the women have been home off and on. The guys, it's been a long 6-game road swing for them. I guess there was a couple of games that they could have won on the road, but the fact that they came back and they're 10-5 overall right now in a pretty good spot, 1-1 in league play as they keep things going. Thursday night, your thoughts on where the guys are right now?
Well, I think the guys are in a pretty good spot when you have these sports, basically any sport other than football where you have limited games, basketball, baseball, when you have a big schedule. The old adage holds true for all of them that you want to, win as many as you can at home, but if you can just go 500 or better on the road, that's probably enough to put you where you want to be. That's about where Georgia Southern sits on the road after that 3-3 road trip. Luckily, they still have their keys, I guess, to Hanner. They'll need to reacquaint themselves, and it's time to really hit the gas now because they're into Sun Belt play. They kicked things off last week in Alabama, a big win against the defending conference champions in Troy, some payback for last year's early tournament exit. However, a tough loss against South Alabama to cap off the weekend, so 1-1 now, and the trend so far in Sun Belt play hasn't been a great one. They've been in a big hole early in both games. This team has shown that it's talented enough to come back, but you don't want to be looking at a double-digit deficit and trying to figure out how to claw your way back night in and night out.
Well, Mike, it's a lot like last season in the way that they've been having to deal with this Ike Smith injury. Last year it was Mike Hughes. This year it's Ike Smith. It looks as though the injury is one that's not going to totally go away. So do you play with him at 80% or so through the rest of the year and hope it doesn't get worse, or do you sit him and end up somewhere near 500? I think, though, that they're in a little bit better situation this year than last.
I think they are, too, and you're just going to have to play your cards night in, night out. Again, not getting behind early, maybe getting a big early lead could help, where you get some guys some rest when those bumps and bruises start to accumulate. But what Georgia Southern has going for them this year is a little bit more complete team, a little bit deeper team, I think, especially when you look into the front court. The last couple of years, rebounding's been an issue. They haven't gotten much offense out of their big guys. This year, a totally different story. They're right up there, one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. And then Monte Glenn, a great singular effort this year. He's averaging about a double-double. He's a threat for a double-double every single night. If they can get maybe one more guy in that front court rotation to keep the team moving when Monte's got to sit or has some foul trouble, I think that this turns into a team that can not only score and shoot like everyone knows they can, but can also get on the boards. They can create second chances. They can take other teams out of games quickly.
All right, well, they have Arkansas State and Arkansas Little Rock on Thursday and Saturday. Let's get out and take a look at some highlights from Thursday's game. The Georgia Southern men's basketball team looking to move to 11-5 overall, and more importantly, 2-1 in Sun Belt play as they host Arkansas State. This one all Eagles. Quan Jackson, the three and the foul. Later on the break, nice passing. Jackson finishing strong. He'd finish with 14 points. Tukey Brown later driving in for the layup. The Eagles get hot from behind the arc as Jake Alsmiller hits the three. Then it's Sean O'Connell coming up with the three-point play as he gets the hoop and the foul. Georgia Southern up 26-9. The Eagles continue to pour it on. Ike Smith the jumper. Next, Mike Hughes for another three. The Eagles with 6 threes in the first half. Alsmiller off the mark, but Monte Glenn there for the putback. He'd have a double-double, 14 points, 10 boards. Tukey then high off the glass. The Eagles up 44-26 at the half. Second half, more of the same. Not sure Tukey called glass, but he'd finish with a game-high 20. Alsmiller then buries the corner three. Tukey will hit another from long distance. The Eagles up by 26 points. Jackson then on the break, finishing with the two-handed flush. And finally, Alsmiller, the nice look to Glenn as the Eagles roll 49.
Hey, Miss Thompson, everything's fine. It's going to be no problem. I'll have you done in a few minutes.
My name is Paisley Nordhoff, part owner of Complete Car Care, and I want you to come see me.
Well, Mike, shifting our gears to the women, and unfortunately, it's been a long, dry spell for the Georgia Southern women, not just this year, but over the past 5 or 6 years. Ever since Rusty Cram was let go, the Eagles have kind of found themselves as one of the bottom feeders in, I guess, the Southern Conference to begin, and now in the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt definitely a tougher women's basketball league than we had over there in the Southern Conference, but still, the Eagles have been struggling. Once again this year, your thoughts on where they are, and is there any hope on the horizon?
Well, there was a lot of hope at the end of last year. You saw this team continuing to take steps forward, maybe baby steps, but still steps forward. I thought they had a chance to win a game in the tournament last year. That didn't quite pan out. This year, some higher hopes, but they knew that they had a couple of big seniors to replace, and as of yet, that has yet to be resolved. Right now, Georgia Southern just can't seem to find any sort of offense. Their shooting percentage is way down this year. They aren't making three-pointers like they did at times last year. So I think that that's first and foremost, is they just need to find a way to put some points on the board. Maybe you can get a stop here and there, but maybe the confidence is lacking right now. They need a couple of big games where they can get more than 1 or 2 girls involved in the offense. The bad news, though, is that the opening of the Sun Belt schedule for Georgia Southern not favoring the ladies. A tough trip to Alabama last week, and now this Arkansas trip there at home. But both Little Rock and Arkansas State traditionally very good on the women's side of things.
All right, well, let's get out and see how they did as they took on Arkansas State Thursday night. The Georgia Southern women in action, taking on Arkansas State. Second half, Nicole Franks gets the good look from long range, and she hits the triple. Seconds later, Franks with the drive and the nice look to a wide-open Amira Atwater, who puts it in. Atwater returns the favor. She finds Franks, and Franks knocks down another 3. Eagles pull within 8. They inch even closer as Alexis Brown takes it the distance on the break. But that would be as close as Southern can get. Back come Arkansas State and the Red Wolves. Acacia Westbrook working hard for the deuce. Next, Lacia Peavy left all alone. She makes the Eagles pay, hitting the triple. Still more from the visitors. Jada Ford from behind the arc. And Georgia Southern falls in this one by a final count of 71-62. Next up, Arkansas Little Rock, that doubleheader on Saturday. All right, Mike, before we go, Charlie Harbison named as a defensive coach. We don't know what position he's going to be taking on for the Eagles, but not really a big surprise, as Chad Lunsford told us that he was hopeful that Scott Sloan would be allowed to bring somebody on his staff. We still may see somebody on the offensive side of the ball with Coach DeBest, but right now Harbison comes in from Lafayette. Also has had a lot of time with some pretty big-time programs.
Yeah, he was with Auburn the last time that they made a national championship game appearance, so definitely a great pedigree there. A lot of familiarity, not only with Georgia Southern having played him the last couple of years, but with the Sun Belt as a whole. And I think you're seeing a trend emerge in the new coaches that are being brought into the fold. The word that keeps coming up is recruiting. And I know that we discussed it a couple of weeks ago. Some people are on edge about who did or didn't sign in that early period, who is or isn't accepting official visits here in the coming weeks before February's signing day. And again, it's hard to say whether you should panic or whether you should be optimistic. Maybe there's some guys who Coach Harbison's been talking to that might get brought into the fold. Hard to say, but what you can say is that the track records of all of these guys is good on the recruiting front, and maybe with all the shakeup in the program the last couple of years, maybe that doesn't show itself this year, but you'd have to give them at least the benefit of the doubt moving forward that this is a staff full of coaches that can definitely bring in some talent.
Nationally ranked as the recruiter of the year in 2005 and 2010, so he does, as you mentioned, bring some pedigree and some background in being a good recruiter. That's the only thing is, time will have to tell. It's tough to tell at this moment. Have to look back on these classes in a couple of years. All right, well, that'll wrap things up for now. For Mike Anthony, I'm Josh Aubrey. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again next week.